I'm actually very excited to be here because I thought I was gonna be on MrBallen Medical Mysteries, man. It was about like 4 days, 5 days. You can fast forward to the video if you want. It was just about 3 or 4 days with me and God just talking. The situation lasted about five. It was a headache, but I'm not gonna lie to you, man. A headache is not supposed to last past 3 days. I was cold and hot at the same time. You know the cold sweats, whatever they call it. I had three blankets on, a heating blanket, and a freaking heater on, and this was going on for 5 days. But look, this what really got me though, and I'm hoping others have experienced this, unfortunately, because I want to make sure it ain't just me. All right, so boom, one day, right, I got better. I was like, oh, ish, there we go, shook it off. It was just a cold. Boy, I kid you not, the next day, boom, I was back down, dog. And this part is going to sound so bad. I know you're going to give me every lesson in life. The reason why I said I felt like I was going to be on Mr. Ball and Medical Mysteries is because Google couldn't fix the problem for me. I couldn't find it nowhere. I was searching, but it was like no one was actually saying they was experiencing this. I know in reality, go to the doctor. That's a few things Google was giving me, but in my eyes, it wasn't solving the problem. Basically, so I didn't want to do that. So I was like, nope. Because unfortunately, I don't know why I do these things, but I let time solve it. I'm not going there unless I really need to. All right. Top 3 photos with disturbing backstories. Haunting Traces of Death by Mr. Ballen. I'm back good now. I'm on the incline now. As you can tell, I'm here recording again, talking with you and all. But yeah, just wanted to share that with you, man. Kind of tripped me out a bit, dog. I was scared as hell. I was talking with God like I'm gonna be a changed man. I'm gonna do things right. Well, you know the little speech you give and all that shit, the one that universe really don't care about. The universe don't care about your feelings. Excuse the huge rant, man. I was just really scared, dog, and I'm just grateful to be here.
Today, I'm going to share 3 stories that all have a haunting picture or video that is associated with them. But before we get into those stories, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right place because that's all we do, and we upload once a week. So if that's of interest to you, please sneak into the like button's house and super glue their eggs into the carton. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. Okay, let's get into
they go crack. That might be. All right, I'm done. Mr. Ball, and that one was actually hilarious. Mercy Road.
On the evening of December 29, 1986, a California Highway Patrol officer named Craig Pyre drove his cruiser down Interstate 15 in San Diego, California. With him was an NBC News reporter in the back seat, and there was a cameraman in the passenger seat. They were filming a segment about highway travel safety that was set to air on the evening news later that night. Officer Pyre was following his typical patrol route, but after a few minutes, they passed by a sign that said Mercy Road. It was an exit. And at that point, Officer Pyre turned to the news team, pointed at Mercy Road, and said, that's where they found the body. So a little more than 36 hours earlier, at around 4 a.m. the previous morning, a 20-year-old college student named Kara Knott had been found strangled to death in a creek right near the Mercy Road exit. Kara had been on her way home from her boyfriend's house when, for whatever reason, maybe car troubles or maybe she was trying to help someone, but she wound up in that cul-de-sac, and then while she was there, she clearly encountered someone dangerous who took her life. And so this was actually why the California Highway Patrol and NBC News were collaborating on this news segment, because Kara's killer was still not caught. And so the idea behind this segment was basically to tell drivers along this highway, like, how to stay safe while they were out there, especially if for whatever reason they had to stop somewhere along the highway, like what to do in that situation. And so as Officer Pyre passed by the Mercy Road exit and continued down Interstate 15, he turned to the news crew, and as they filmed, he began talking about the basics of highway travel safety. Specifically, he said, look, one of the most hazardous things that can happen to you beyond an accident on the highway is if you have some sort of car trouble that forces you to stop on the highway. Because once you stop, there's an inclination for a lot of people to want to leave their vehicle. But that's a very dangerous thing to do.
Anything could happen. Being a female, you could be raped, robbed if you're a male. um, all the way to where you could be killed.
Officer Pryor also warned people not to get into a stranger's car because there was a running theory at this point that perhaps Kara had gotten into her killer's car. As this particular segment was filmed, the one you just watched, Officer Pryor was looking ahead and he noticed there was a car pulled over on the shoulder of the highway with its hazards on. So he turned to the news crew and basically said, look, here's a chance for us to actually show the people in real time what to do in case your car breaks down on the highway. So he pulled his
gonna be a
cruiser
killer,
over right
huh?
behind the stalled car, he got out, and then gestured for the news crew to come with him. Officer Pryor walked over to the passenger side door of this car, and through the open window, he asked the driver to get out and talk to him. The driver did, and as the camera rolled, Officer Pryor asked him to explain, what's going on here? What happened to your car? The driver said he had run out of gas and then gotten stranded on the side of the road. And then he had left his car and walked to a gas station to get a gas can, came all the way back, he put the gas into his car, but his car still wouldn't start. Now, at this point, Officer Pryor is realizing that this driver is doing basically exactly what he shouldn't be doing, according to the safety tips Officer Pryor had given. And so on camera, he basically says to this guy, do you understand how dangerous it is to have left your car like that and walked alone?
I had no choice.
Do you understand what a hazard that is? And the driver just kind of looked at him and shrugged like, yeah, I guess so. After that, Officer Pryor called the man a tow truck. His car was towed and the man was on his way. And Officer Pryor got back into the cruiser with the news crew and they carried on. After that, Officer Pryor and the news crew wrapped up filming. And then after he dropped them back off again, they told him what time to expect his segment to air on NBC that night. And sure enough, that evening, Officer Pryor was in front of a TV as the broadcast started. And when Officer Pryor's actual segment aired on TV, to him and to the California Highway Patrol, it went great. It was 1.5 minutes long. It sort of hit all the high points. It showed Officer Pryor, talking about how to be safe on the highway and talking to the stranded motorist. It kind of did exactly what they expected it to do. And when it was over, Officer Pryor clicked off the TV and didn't think much about it because it was not a big deal. It was just a basic safety video. And for the vast majority of other people who watched this clip live on TV, it really didn't stand out to them. Again, it was just kind of a routine police safety video. But there were a few people when they watched this clip that noticed something very specific. And within an hour of this clip airing on TV, those few people were calling the police in droves to tell them, we know what happened to Kara Knott. And the police would follow up on these tips. And sure enough, just over 2 weeks later, they had gathered enough evidence that they were able to arrest Kara Knott's killer. It would turn out all the clues the police needed to solve the Kara Knott murder case were right there in that 1.5 minute long video. Because what happened to Kara had almost happened to over 24 other women in San Diego. And those young women were the ones who saw the news segment when it happened live, and they noticed this particular detail that clearly telegraphed who Kara's killer was. They were the ones who called police. On the night of Kara's murder, December 27, 1986, she pulled off Interstate 15 on the Mercy Road exit, and she came to a stop in that cul-de-sac. Now, we don't know exactly why she came to a stop in there, but either way, she was there, and that's where she encountered her killer. Now, the other 24 women who encountered the same person, the killer, they were terrorized and kind of tortured and held hostage for a couple of hours, but eventually were let go. But Kara wasn't.
What?
During her encounter, at some point, the killer clubbed her over the head and then strangled her to death with a rope. Now, the killer, at first, had gotten away with this, until they were featured on that 1.5 minute long video. And some of those women who had survived their attack, they're watching the segment, and suddenly their attacker is on TV. Now, they had previously reported their attack to police, but
yeah, because he let them go, huh?
Done. And now they're staring at, for sure, the person who attacked them, who's right on TV. And critically, as part of this segment, they're hearing about how this other young woman had been attacked and killed on this highway. And they're thinking, oh, this person did that to me. I barely got away. I bet they killed this girl. And on top of that, as they're watching the news, staring at their attacker, they can see there's a fresh cut over their eye. And so put that all together and they thought, boom, that's the person who killed Kara Knott.
And so the cop missed it because he was so focused on making a good show, right? I'm not blaming him for that because, yeah, he did get lost an opportunity. Oh, this is why you guys are here recording. Let me go ahead and show you how this is all going to work out here. Bam, we see there's a civilian who need help right now. So let's go ahead and show him the protocol there. And the whole time, the universe gave you the answer right there in your face. Oh, shit. I mean, obviously, once we saw the dude, we knew something suspicious about this nigga about to pop up. But
as they're watching the news, staring
they
at their
want
attacker,
to point the blame to shit.
There's a fresh cut over their eye. And so put that all together and they thought, boom, that's the person who killed Karen Otts. And sure enough, the police would follow up on these tips and they would confirm that the man in the video with the cut over his eyebrow was Kara's killer. And Kara's killer was none other than Officer Craig Pyre. Officer Pyre was found guilty of murder and sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. Since being incarcerated, he has gone up for parole 2 separate times and been rejected both times. However, he is up for parole again in 2027.
Most people don't believe that this was me.
Erica, shut the fuck. I'll play Erica. I'll talk your shit, Black Queen. I'll talk your shit, but I'm gonna skip your ass. If I get my foot in my mouth for like 2 more seconds. Are you shitting me, dog? Let me go back to this little safety protocol. How to do it on the Safety Street video real quick. What the hell? I want to see if I can see this scar, man. When people like that take power, dude, oh, that shit is some scary shit in humans, boy. Because it'd be hard to stop them. Because I'm calling the person that should be helping stopping you, but you are you. Like, what the fuck? Oh, and I was like, don't be the brother, don't be. I can't find it. Let's get back to the video. This is disturbing as hell, man.
Thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring today's
That would also connect the piece why he was able to let a good amount of these girls go and they would not be able to identify him as a cop doing this, because he was probably doing this ish undercover in his, not in his cop attire. Now approaching. Oh, mercy roll, but he killed
Around 1 p.m. on November 28, 1979, a 52-year-old tour guide named Peter Mulgrew stood at the front of the cabin of Air New Zealand flight TE901. Out the window next to him, he looked out and he saw this vast white landscape reflecting the afternoon sun. And so he grabbed the microphone and announced to the 237 passengers that they were now flying over Antarctica. The passengers got really excited and immediately pulled out their cameras and began snapping photos left and right. And as you can see from some of the photos that they took, a lot of the passengers actually got up out of their seats and moved around to get the best angle of the ground down below. Now, on a normal commercial flight, that behavior would not be okay. You can't just, wander all around the cabin. You need to basically stay seated. But this was not a normal commercial flight. This was a sightseeing flight. Air New Zealand regularly took off from New Zealand and would fly people up over Antarctica, and their tour guide would point out a few landmarks down below, and then that flight would land back in New Zealand. That was the whole thing. It was just a chance to go out and see Antarctica and take photos. Peter had been a tour guide for this flight many times before, and so he knew what to expect. He not only knew kind of how passengers react, but he also knew exactly when to look out which side of the plane to get the best view. And so after a couple of minutes, he called out to the passengers, hey, if you look out the left side of the plane, you'll get a great view of the coast of Antarctica. And so all the passengers, they immediately get up and shift over to the left side of the plane.
MrBallen background was throwing me off. So they sit. It's still, like he said, it's not a commercial flight, but I mean, far as the bird itself, it's still more of the model we use today, right? Because I was looking at that thing behind MrBallen, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, my bad. Like, you can't do that out here, doggy bone.
Peter had been a tour guide for this flight many times before, and so he knew what to expect. He not only knew kind of how passengers react, but he also knew exactly when to look out which side of the plane to get the best view. And so after a couple of minutes, he called out to the passengers, hey, if you look out the left side of the plane, you'll get a great view of the coast of Antarctica. And so all the passengers, they immediately get up and shift over to the left side of the plane, and they press their cameras up against the glass, they're taking photos. And then a couple of minutes later, Peter called out to the group again and said, okay, now look out the right side where you'll see Mount Erebus, this huge, stunning mountain. Now, Peter was accustomed to people gasping when they saw this mountain because it was so beautiful, so enormous. And as people piled up against the right side and began taking photos, that's what he heard. People were gasping. But then at the same time, the plane suddenly jolted hard, and one of those passengers on the right side took this photo. As you can see, there
blood,
are black marks on the window, and these black marks are believed to be either engine oil or soot from Mount Erebus. Because Mount Erebus was not just some mountain. Mount Erebus was an active volcano, and the flight path of TE-901 was supposed to have them going safely around
Why is he going
Mount
close
Erebus
to the
get
volcano?
a nice full view of the volcano. But mistakes were made, and before the pilots could correct them, the plane flew directly into the volcano. And so this photo you're looking at almost certainly was taken literally at the moment of impact, a crash that resulted in 237 lives lost. The crash of flight TE-901 was the worst aviation disaster in New Zealand history, and as a result, Air New Zealand no longer offers those sightseeing flights.
Man, rest in peace to them. I ain't mad at them. It was a beautiful experience. Supposed to be. Yeah, that one was definitely effed up, man. When you hear about people who just left to go enjoy some time to themselves, enjoy life, reward yourself, because, hey, you're living life, and then they end up paying for it. Situations like this, when you hear this happen, it's like, I was gonna say it's like, why? But yeah, it's no getting no answer to that. It's like, damn.
At 5:30 a.m. on July 16th, 1945, At 5:30 a.m. on July 16th, 1945, a 13-year-old girl named Barbara Kent was sleeping inside of a cabin in Ruidoso, New Mexico, where she was staying for a sleepover summer dance camp. And as she slept, suddenly there was this loud booming sound that literally shook her awake and actually caused her to fall out of her bed onto the floor. Barbara sat up feeling totally confused, and she looked around the cabin and she saw the 9 other girls that were also here for the sleepover camp. They too were wide awake, and some of them also had fallen onto the floor. And so the girls, they're all freaking out. They're looking at each other like, what's going on here? What was that? And as this kind of pandemonium is ensuing, their lead dance instructor came running into the cabin and told the girls that she thought one of the cabin's heaters had exploded and that potentially there could be a fire somewhere on the camp. And so all the girls, they're already totally panicked. Now they're getting really scared. And the instructor's just like, all right, girls, go outside, stand by the river. I'm gonna go find wherever this explosion happened and make sure everything is okay. And so the girls, they were led outside, totally a mess, and they went and stood by this river near the cabin and waited for their instructor to go look around. And so Barbara and the 9 other girls, they're totally terrified, and they're standing by this riverbank, and they're kind of looking around the property, seeing if they can see smoke or fire, but they can't. And as they're standing there waiting for their instructor to come back, Barbara felt something hit the tip of her nose, and it was cold and soft. And she looked up and she realized it was snowing. But it's July in New Mexico. It should not be snowing. But sure enough, snow was coming down from the sky. And as the snow came down on Barbara, she looked at the other girls, and they too were looking up and putting their hands up and letting the snow hit them in the face. They couldn't believe it. I mean, this was like a totally rare weather event. And so a minute later, their dance instructor came back and told the girls that, she looked all over the camp and there did not appear to be a fire or an explosion of any kind, that everything seemed fine. They didn't know what that loud sound was, but, by all accounts, it seemed safe here. And so the girls were very relieved to hear this, but already their attention had completely shifted to the snow. I mean, again, it's July in New Mexico. There shouldn't be snow. And so the girls, they turned to their instructor and they're like, okay, well, now that it's safe, would it be okay if we put on our bathing suits and just went swimming in the river while it snowed on us? I mean, this is incredible. And the instructor, who to this point had really been focused on finding the fire and the hazard or whatever, now that she knew things were safe, she kind of took in the scene and also suddenly appreciated how unbelievable it was that there was snow coming down.
Because New Mexico, even in the winter, don't get snow, right? So to these girls, they wouldn't know what it'd be like to experience it. So experiencing it, even if not experiencing it, could seem like you're experiencing it then, huh? Because I would think
and also suddenly appreciated how unbelievable it was that there was snow coming down. And so she told the girls, yeah, get your bathing suits, go swimming, enjoy this. This is totally like a once-in-a-lifetime moment here. And so very excitedly, Barbara and the other girls ran back into the cabin. They changed into their swimwear, and then a moment later, they were out frolicking in the river as the snow fell on top of them. And for hours, they just played in the river and enjoyed the snow. And the snow was kind of building up on the riverbanks, and so some of the girls went over.
It's not, it's not cold enough.
The snow fell on top of them. And for hours, they just played in the river and enjoyed the snow. And the snow was kind of building up on the riverbanks, and so some of the girls went over and scooped it up and rubbed it on their faces and, made snowballs, and they just had a great time. And at one point, the dance instructor came by and actually took a picture of Barbara, who was right in the middle of the river enjoying this bizarre scene. But eventually, despite how fun the snow was, the novelty of it all sort of wore off, and the girls got tired of swimming, so they changed into their regular clothes and went about their day. And over the course of the next few days, summer camp went as normal. The girls had a great time, and when summer camp ended, all the girls went home. Now, the girls never got an explanation for why it had snowed. They all just assumed it was some super rare weather event that they had been lucky enough to experience. Until 17 years later, when Barbara was 30 years old at this point, and she learned that all the other girls she had gone to the dance camp with had died. One by one, each of those girls were diagnosed with aggressive forms of cancer that killed them. Damn. Barbara was the only one who was spared. And she wouldn't get any clarification as to why that had happened until decades later in 2006, when Barbara was in her 70s, when the government finally came out and admitted the truth. It would turn out Barbara's dance instructor was correct in thinking there had been an explosion on July 16, 1945. But of course, it was not any of the cabin's heaters or anything local to the cabin or the camp. Instead, the explosion occurred 40 miles away at a US government testing site in the middle of the New Mexico desert. And the explosion that literally caused the girls to be dumped out of their beds was from the world's first ever atomic bomb being dropped. It was the Manhattan Project's Trinity test, a test that no civilians in the area had been warned about.
I was just thinking no one was...
There was this nuclear fallout that rained from the sky on 500,000 people that lived within a 150-mile radius of the detonation site. And within those 500,000 people were those 10 innocent teenage girls at their dance camp. The snow that the girls played in was actually radioactive material from the sky that over the course of 17 years would give 9 of the girls various forms of cancer that would kill them. Here is the picture that the dance instructor took of Barbara posing in the middle of the river as the snow is falling all around her. As you can see, Barbara is smiling and looking up at the snow, not realizing it's literally going to kill everyone in that picture. As for Barbara, she did not die young. However, she would suffer from multiple cancers and illnesses, all associated with radiation exposure.
Damn. As a kid, you'll really be gullible to some shit like that. 150 miles away, possibly affected by this. No one fucking. Yeah, I can definitely say this one kind of effed the mental a little more than I wanted it to today, man. But either way it go, I'm gonna get up out of here, dude. I was assuming, by the way, with the girls that these were kids, man. That's not fair if they were living in the area where they never actually experienced snow. So for them, this is their first time. Yeah, I can see these kids buying that, man. They're kids. You saw in the picture, which was so effed up as I looked at it again. It's like, yo, they're enjoying this, and we know what happened because they're supposed to. They're kids. I would have been doing the same thing if I was a kid there, man, enjoying the snow. But that wasn't even the problem of that story, man. The fact that this test was done, I've never heard about this test. This test was done. No one was informed, and the fact that it affected a 150-mile radius, that is insane. Legit playing with people's lives and not caring because, war and money. That's all it's about here, dude. I'm talking about planet Earth in general. The human in general. We all gotta be the biggest, the best. Greed, gotta have it all. Gotta conquer, dude. This entire planet. It's what's been going on since the beginning of effing time. And it's just still going. I can decide if I want to say keep it still. So it's how it turns to a snake in that motherfucker. With that being said, man, rest in peace to those girls. Man, rest in peace to everyone who fell victim in this story as well. I'll just say that, dude. This was definitely one of those videos I wished I'd have been ready for. But regardless, though, enjoy your day, your morning, your evening, your night. Whenever you're watching this video, click that like button. I'm out.